Thank you once again. Now I hand it over to Dr. Ravi.
Thank you,
Dr.
Professor.
Kalyan Sundaram. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ravi, Dr. Kalyan Sundaram will speak for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Thank
please,
you,
sir.
BCIC, for allowing us to participate in the program. The Devesh Agarwal, Mr. Parasuraman, and Prithvi and others. To put the perspective, last October, I think everybody was living a hunky-dory life, planning their life normally, planning their trips, planning their programs, travel and holidays. Suddenly, out of the blue, something happened end of March, and the rest we all know what happened. By November, December, people thought we have conquered everything. Christmas was celebrated, New Year's was celebrated, and everything seemed to be going back to normal until the wave 2, as we called it, appeared from nowhere. So people think from end of March. What started as a second wave has now become a tsunami. Why did it happen? What are its implications? What are we to do? There are several facets that this has impacted, including we talk about viral mutation, which Dr. Ravi will mention in detail. There is a mutation in the IT glitch also today. Everything would have gone on smoothly, but some mutation happened. So sometimes we cannot predict things that we face. With this brief introduction, all question answers have been received. More than 180 questions have been received in advance. I'll try to put it together. Those who have combined repeat questions will be combined, and some chat questions can be asked. If you have the time, we will take them up. Professor Ravi is a very well-known person in the field of neurovirology. He started the Department of Neurovirology in NIMHANS for 35 years ago. One of the much sought after specialists in this area, both in the government of Karnataka, India, and several boards across the globe. Several awards and patents in his name, but if you keep reading today about his achievements and what he has done in his CV, we will end up the program and say goodbye to everybody. But that is not the intention. So without any further delay, I invite Dr. Ravi to talk about the second wave and beyond. What can we expect? What can we anticipate? And the rest. Dr. Ravi, please.
Thank you, Dr. Kalyan Sundaram, and I should also thank VCI for having great. And I'm sorry about the technical glitches. We will straight away go into my presentation, and then we'll have an interaction. What I'm going to do is to talk to you about the lessons learned and the way forward. Can I have the next slide, please? I need somebody to move my slides. Okay. I would first like to acknowledge WhatsApp University for all the misinformation it has spread. It has also spread good information, but more misinformation than good information. So what I would like to say is what I am presenting is not from WhatsApp University, but it's from scientific literature. I'll give you a brief one slide history, and then I'll go into the audit of lessons learned in the first two waves pertaining to the virus, pertaining to transmission, pertaining to clinical lessons we learned and vaccines. And then move on to how do we prepare ourselves for the future and give you a small summary. The overall objective of this interaction, I'm sure Dr. Kalyan Sundaram will agree, is to not create panic, but to empower everyone who's attending this program with knowledge so that they can contribute equally to the prevention. Next slide, please. If you look at, before I go on to the history, next slide, please. I would like to introduce COVID vocabulary to you. I think apart from doing so many things to mankind, COVID also introduced and popularized several new words. One is mutation. Mutation means ability to change. Quarantine was there, but I don't think many people in the present generation had used it effectively. Now we are using it. Quarantine means isolating people from who are suspected to be infected so that they don't spread the disease. Social distancing is a new terminology that means maintaining a minimum distance between two individuals. New normal, new normal is the way we are going to live. Infodemic is what is happening on WhatsApp. There is an epidemic of information. Not all of it is credible. A lot of it is questionable. And of course, the word positive for the first time in human history, at least in our generation, means bad. Are you positive? Means today it means you are COVID positive. So remember these words. I'm going to come back and end my presentation with these words and tell you what they mean and what we should be doing. Next slide, please. It's taking a very long time. Okay, this is a graph that is a century old, and this is a graph of this 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. It occurred in three waves. It started late 1917, and then it peaked around mid 1918. There was a gap of a couple of months, and then there was a huge wave. Again, a gap of few months, and then came the third wave in 2019. And there were, of course, subsequent smaller waves. Why am I telling this? We know from history that respiratory viruses, when they cause pandemics, they occur in waves. If you forget history, we are condemned to repeat it. So if anybody says we did not know that there will be a second wave, and if we even today deny saying, I don't think there will be a third wave, we are sadly mistaken. What do you know about coronaviruses? They are enveloped RNA viruses, meaning they have ribonucleic acid as the genetic material. Those of you who studied high school biology will know that there are two forms of genetic material, RNA and DNA. Human beings have DNA. Viruses can have either RNA or DNA. They are unique in the universe. All other living organisms have both RNA and DNA. They have been around for 40-50 years. There were minor coronaviruses which are causing common colds and diarrhea. The first serious one emerged in 2001. It caused an acute respiratory syndrome, which was severe. Therefore, it was called SARS virus. In 2012, another virus emerged in the Middle East, which also caused severe disease. So it was called Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome virus. And of course, in 2019 end, we had this novel virus that came, which has been designated SARS-CoV-2 to differentiate it from the original SARS that appeared in 2002. They are called corona because they have on electron microscopy an appearance of a crown. They are spherical with many studded projections symmetrically placed, resembling that of a crown. These viruses, next slide please, have certain unique properties. One of them is that, next one. One of them is that they have the ability to spill over, next one please. They have the ability to spill over from one species to another. These viruses are in nature found in bats and mice or rats, and they have bats and rats and mice have a number of coronaviruses. All of them do not cause disease in human beings because they don't have access. But sometimes what happens, the virus spills over from bats to human beings, primarily because of human activity. They are very happy in their own niche in their own host, but man invites trouble by getting these viruses onto himself. SARS-CoV-1 was a spillover from bat to a cat and then human beings. MERS was a spillover from a bat to a camel. And the latest SARS-CoV-2 was a spillover from a bat to a pangolin, which is an anteater. And these bats and pangolins and human beings were found in a very crowded market in Wuhan in southern China. That's where the spillover occurred. Next slide, please. What we learned in the last 1 year is initially we said coronaviruses are stable. I mean, they probably will mutate, but they are not like influenza viruses. But on the scale on which corona SARS-CoV-2 spread or COVID spread was in millions. And when a multi-virus, RNA virus, a respiratory virus spreads in millions, that means it is multiplying in trillions in individuals. These RNA viruses have an advantage that they mutate. Mutation means they change. Why do they change? They have an enzyme that is poor in copying the genetic material. We say poor proofreading ability. Each time it copies itself, it has 30,000 bases. It makes one mistake. So 29,999 bases are similar to the parent, but one is different. Now, many times as it multiplies, the mutations add up. And the mutations, when they add up, they result in change of the virus behavior if it is in a critical area. And that, once it happens, this mutant will spread. As the map is showing you, mutants have evolved in the last 1 year and they have become variants, and these variants are spread across. The bottom panel shows you a map which is about 3 months what has happened from December, middle of December to end of February. What has happened is that the UK variant, it is not that this variant originated in UK, it was detected in UK. This spread to the rest of the world and is quickly replacing local circulating strains. So this is something we have learned from the last 2 waves. Viruses mutate, new variants emerge. Next slide, please. The next slide will show you currently there are about 4 variants. The panel on the left, the South African variant, the UK variant, the Brazilian variant, our own Indian variant, which we call double mutant, which was first detected in Maharashtra, which is called B.1.617. And then, of course, there was the forefather of the Maharashtra mutant, which is the California, USA virus. It was detected in California, and that was called B.1.427. Now, these mutants are spreading fast. They are more infectious. That in today's newspapers, most of you would have read that the UK Genomic Consortium has found evidence that the Maharashtrian mutant is spreading faster. So it has been classified as a variant of concern. Hitherto, there were only 3 variants of concern: South Africa, UK, and Brazil. Now, our Maharashtra mutant or the double mutant from India has been added to a concern. Next slide, please. The B.1.617, which is the Maharashtra mutant, is spreading fast in our country. Now, this is sequencing done from samples from West Bengal, which is showing a wave pattern. Each color in the wave represents one variant. You please concentrate on January 1st, 2021. The red color Maharashtra mutant was a very small proportion. Slowly, it has grown and spread, and in approximately 3 months, you can see in Bengal, most of the viruses sequenced are today Maharashtra variant. Next slide, please. Same is also seen in several states in South India. You can see the indigo blue color, the band expanding from April 2020 to April 2021. In the last 1 year, many labs in India have been sequencing. You can see this particular mutant, the double mutant from Maharashtra, was detected early in February, and slowly it has expanded. And you can see today a large proportion in southern states also is because of the Maharashtra mutant. Next slide, please. Next slide shows you that not only India, it has now spread to 36 countries as of yesterday when I saw the WHO website. India has the highest percentage of this variant, followed by Australia, Bahrain, and New Zealand. Many countries are reporting this variant. So it is spreading globally and it's a variant of concern. Next slide, please. Moving on to transmission, what are the lessons we learned? We learned that COVID is a virus that is spread through respiratory droplets. Now, these droplets, when they are big, and if you are within 3 to 6 feet of somebody and the person has the virus, coughs or sneezes, those droplets enter your nose and mouth, and then you can get the infection. So we learned very early that from other respiratory viruses as well as from COVID, that wearing a mask is the most important protection against the infection. As this cartoon depicts, both social distancing and wearing mask is very important. If both people who are interacting with each other wear a mask and maintain 1.5-meter distance, the probability of transmission is 5%. If both are not wearing mask, it is 90%. If an infected person is not wearing mask and the normal person is wearing, the chance of transmission is 30%. If the infected person wears a mask and other person does not wear a mask, the chance is approximately 5%. So we know very clearly one of the most effective methods of preventing coronavirus transmission or acquiring coronavirus infection is by wearing mask. Next slide, please. We also knew from studies, research studies all over the country. I'm showing Karnataka. We did this last year where we looked at the epidemiology. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. No, previous slide, please. Thank you. We knew from last year this pattern was seen across the country. 90% of people were asymptomatic, 10% were symptomatic. Who were the people who were symptomatic? Those who were in the first wave, they were beyond 45 years. And those who had severe disease and who had death were those above 60 years who had diabetes, hypertension, cancer, and other comorbidities. Can you please move on to the next slide? Thank you. We also learned very quickly from coronavirus research studies, that the virus can affect a host by a variety of mechanisms. It can multiply and kill lung cells. It can alter blood pressure because it binds to blood pressure receptors. It can damage blood vessel lining, producing clot. But more than all these mechanisms, the most important mechanism we learned from our research studies is when the virus goes to lung, it induces in some people a very aggressive response, defense response, that leads to outpouring of fluid, and the lung gets filled with fluid. Consequently, the person gets deficient in oxygen because air exchange is prohibited. So the most important mechanism for coronavirus disease is not individual the reaction of an individual to the presence of the virus in the lung. Stop blaming the poor virus. In fact, can you click once more, please, for the next slide? The father of microbiology, Louis Pasteur, very, very early on his deathbed, when he was dying, he said, the germ is nothing, the terrain is everything. And so, remember, the disease that we see due to coronavirus is predominantly due to the body's reaction and not directly to the virus. Next slide, please. We also know that 80 to 85% of the people have very, very less, as shown in the pyramid, very mild symptoms, and 10 to 15% have moderate symptoms, and 5% require admission to the hospital and probably to intensive care. The common symptoms we know are fever, cough, cold, breathlessness, fatigue, muscle pain, diarrhea, loss of smell, loss of taste, and in the second wave, some unusual symptoms like conjunctivitis. And in children, we are seeing also an inflammatory syndrome where skin is involved. So these are the symptoms. We know the symptoms. We know 80 to 80% it's mild. And we also know, look at that red horizontal bar below, that after the virus enters, it takes approximately 2 to 3 days or 5 days for first symptom to set in. And 1 week after the symptoms set in, people who go into serious or moderate disease, it takes approximately 5 to 7 days after initial symptom when they start manifesting breathlessness and difficulty in breathing, and their oxygen levels drop between the 5th and the 7th day. So that is the time you have to watch out. So people who are in home isolation need to keep monitoring their oxygen. If there is any change on the 5th, 6th, 7th day, immediately they should go to hospital. Otherwise, there is no need to rush to the hospital on the first day when you get symptoms. On the right, there is a graphic that is telling you that coronavirus not only predominantly affects the lung, but it can affect almost every system in the body directly or indirectly. So if you know coronavirus disease today, you know medicine. Next slide, please. With all this information on transmission, on the virus, and the clinical management, everything in place, we went on quickly to develop vaccines. Now, many people ask me where coronavirus vaccines fast track. The answer is no. Please remember, it has gone through all the rigor of testing and experimentation before it was done. It was given for human use. This happened because of an unprecedented global effect. Before a vaccine goes into human trials, it is tested in animals. It has to prove itself in animals against challenge, and it has to produce antibodies. Then it enters human phase, the middle panel, clinical testing. There are 3 phases: extensive studies on safety, on immunogenicity, meaning is the virus producing the desired response, or the vaccine producing the desired response, and finally the acid test of efficacy. All this has been done for coronaviruses. No safety is compromised. So please be rest assured that this is not a fast-tracked vaccine that is being used experimentally in human beings. Next slide, please. The globe responded phenomenally well, and several vaccines have come. To this list, you should add the Indian Covaxin, and these vaccines all are 2 doses. They come with different amount of efficacy. What is efficacy? Efficacy is defined as the number of people in the vaccinated group who are getting infected compared to a group that did not receive vaccine. Remember, this is protection we are talking about. This is efficacy. What is protection? Protection means in the vaccinated group, there is no disease or no death. Let me assure you that all these 5 vaccines plus the Covaxin, all of them today that are being used completely protect against severe disease and death. But they differ in their efficacy, meaning in the ability to protect infection, they vary. No vaccine gives you a guarantee against protection against infection, against disease, and that's please. Can you go to the next slide, please? So at the end of the first, Dr. Kalyan Sundaram said, all pundits, everybody in every media started saying, why is a second COVID wave unlikely? Not have a COVID wave, second wave. All sorts of theories because there are too many professors and there are no students. So me and some other experts said, learn from history. There will be a second wave. Please don't ignore it. Next slide, please. And lo and behold, what happened? We had a second wave. Before I go to our second wave, look at what is happening around. USA has completed its third wave. It is entered its fourth wave. Look, all the countries on the right, all of them are battling their third wave. European countries, many European countries are battling this. Plus Australia, plus New Zealand, even Japan, Canada, you name the country. So please remember, we are likely to get a third wave and we'll come to the reasons for that. Next slide, please. Now, this is what happened in India. Why did we have a second wave? Why did we have it at this magnitude? I think we should be very, very clear. Warnings by scientists were ignored and many factors contributed. The first and foremost is people stopped wearing masks. Second, they started getting together, partying, and too many crowds without wearing masks. In these crowds, there were spreads that occurred, and this is called super spreading events. In Bangalore, there were many super spreading events. There were apartment complexes where people turned positive because of functions or parties. The college hostels, which from other parts of the country, and saw a super spreading event. Then lot of crowds in markets, in pubs, in restaurants, in cinema halls. Most importantly, rallies and elections contributed phenomenally to the spread, and of course, huge religious events such as Kumbh Mela, where people congregated without masks. Please don't blame the virus. From now on, my argument is going to be a fight between me and Dr. Kalyan Sundaram. At the end, you can vote who is right and who is responsible for the second wave. As a result of all these factors coming together, plus the factor that we had mutants, which are spreading faster, we had a very steep, huge, and we were not ready for it. Now we're facing the wrath of it. Now, also remember, different states are going to peak at different times. It is not that the unaffected states people are immune. Probably they're taking measures or they're wearing masks, but sooner or later, virus will catch everyone who does not protect themselves. Next slide, please. There are many myths which I spoke a few days back in another meeting. I will quickly run to them. That this is summer, virus will get killed. It will not, transmission is low, absolute income it is foolish to behave. You yourself are seeing in the peak of summer, it is spreading. So did it in the last year. Next slide, please. The second myth is about uh, strains have made the virus more deadly. Again, there is no evidence to say that. It is not that people who get infected with new strains or variants are dying more. No, it is more infectious. Yes, all the available data on variants says those, especially the UK, the Brazilian, the South African, and probably as of today, the Indian Maharashtrian double mutant, all of them spread to more people. But in terms of disease producing potential, it is the same. Next slide, please. The next myth is, oh, in the second wave, yeah, older people were at greater risk during the first wave, younger people are at high risk during the second wave. Myth. In the first wave, even if you do an age breakup of the positive people, it is equally distributed from childhood to young adults to middle age and to the elderly, equally distributed in the second wave. But remember, large number of people in the population belong to the 20 to 45 age group. They were protected during lockdown. They are moving around for their job and their living and their studies more, and that is why they were exposed more, and that's why it looks like it is very, very it's a young age is a risk factor. Represented in the population, so you are seeing larger numbers. Next wave, please. The new variants are missed by RT-PCR. Again, absolute armchair theories. There are absolutely no evidence. All RT-PCRs we use today amplify more than 3 genes. Mutations are more in the spike protein gene. None of us use spike protein gene based diagnostic as a single gene. So this is not true. If cases are missed, there are other reasons for it. People come late to the hospital, breathless. At that time, nasal and throat swabs will be negative. But if you take the lung fluid, they will be positive. Plus, huge amount of testing, mistakes are occurring. Samples are not collected properly. They are not stored properly. So there are several factors why a test is coming. Next slide, please. And the next myth is about hospitalization is necessary for everybody after they test positive. I already told you the natural history. 80 to 85% of the people will remain asymptomatic, but they should monitor themselves. Monitoring of people at home, self-monitoring or monitoring by healthcare system has gone for a 6 because the numbers have surged so much. So I urge all of you that home monitoring is very important. All it requires is reading your temperature, making note if your symptoms are worsening, and most importantly, monitoring your oxygen using a pulse oximeter. There's a very simple test known as 6-minute walk test, which means you take oxygen concentration, walk for 6 minutes briskly in your room, again take the oxygen concentration. The difference between the two readings, if it is greater than 5%, only then you need to go to the hospital. Next slide, please. Of course, inhalation, steam inhalation is very good, but the myth is steam inhalation will kill the virus. That is wrong. Steam inhalation is good because it clears your respiratory passages, it liquefies secretions, it makes you feel better. It clears all your sinus. That is not to say that because of the temperature, the virus is killed. There are several other myths that going around, and I will not dwell on them. can go ahead. Next slide, please. There are myths related to vaccines that I told you. One, it was rushed. No, it is not rushed. It changes your DNA. No, no vaccine, including RNA vaccines, get integrated into human genome. It can give you COVID-19. No, we are using only killed virus vaccine, and that too in Covaxin. All the others are not corona vaccine. They are only proteins. Vaccines contain egg protein. No, they are not made in eggs. It causes severe side effects. No, it does cause side effect, but severe side effects are 0.006%. It makes women infertile. No, these are promoted by anti-vaccine lobbies. You cannot take vaccine during periods in women. That is also wrong. So there are many myths. Please do not give credence to them. This is very clearly proven that vaccines are safe. They protect against severe disease and death, and all vaccines also protect against variants, but the degree of protection varies. So all vaccines also protect, do not cause death in people who are infected with variants. Now moving on to the last part, last few minutes, 5 minutes, the road ahead. The road ahead is like the picture on the left. It is a long road with many speed breakers. Each wave is a speed breaker. So whenever there is a speed breaker, we have to slow down. We cannot drive at the same speed. Last year, we went into a lockdown. At that time, our mantra was lives are important over livelihoods. Of course, we learned some bitter lessons that livelihoods are also important. So this time around, we completely flipped sides and we said livelihoods are more important. I don't know what comes under livelihoods, whether Kumbh Mela and elections, they drive economy. I don't know. Please teach me. If I am wrong, I'm willing to learn. To my common sense, it does not drive economy. This time we reacted. We gave more importance to crowding and so we are facing a picture like the middle graph on the right side, a huge blue hump you see. That is where we are. Remember, we will have more humps to come. Next slide, please. Apart from these three waves, there are also people who talk about effect of corona in a different context and four waves. The first wave talked about the mortality and morbidity. The second wave we know is going to impact the resources. We are going to deplete our resources, and also we have to prepare for healthcare. The third wave is on chronic conditions. Because corona has taken center stage, people with other illnesses are suffering. There are no beds for them in the hospital right now. All other people are staying at home with cancers, kidney disease, mental health disease, neurological disease. Unless it's emergency, they're all staying home. Throughout is the fourth wave that Dr. Kalyan Sundaram will talk to you, where it has taken a huge toll in terms of psychological impact and burnout and trauma that it has produced to many families and thousands of people across the world. Next slide, please. So when and what to expect in the third wave? There will be a third wave. This is not only me who said it. Almost every other public health expert is talking about a third wave. Why will we get a third wave? Let me explain that. Entire country is not immunized. The only way you get immunity to SARS-CoV, because it's a new virus, is either get infected or get vaccinated. I but not everybody is in either of these groups. That means all these people who are not infected or not vaccinated, the virus will search you out. The virus will attack susceptible people. At least for adults, we have started vaccination, and many adults have got infected and recovered, and many more have asymptomatic infections that are not detected. But what about children? In the first wave, 3 to 4% got infected. In the second wave, now we know up to 10% of the people who are infected are children, but they do not have a vaccine. So, common sense tells you that if a third wave occurs, the virus has to find a host, and most likely it will attack children. So, we have to accept and this fact, and even if we are wrong, it doesn't matter. But we cannot put our children through a wave because of our lack of common sense. Next slide, please. So what should we be doing? We should be definitely wearing masks. Vaccine or no vaccine, variant or no variant, the only protection is wearing mask, so avoiding and maintaining social distance. Remember the graphic that I showed you. Avoid crowds, avoid gatherings. You can have economic activity without having crowds and without having gatherings. Avoid especially crowding in closed rooms. You can have gatherings, but you cannot have crowding in closed spaces. Closed spaces of highest risk. When there is no ventilation, virus hangs around in the air for a very long time. That's why published that is hanging around in the air everywhere. It is hanging around in closed spaces. What are these? Pubs, restaurants, marriage halls, hostels, dining halls, then public toilets. These are all poorly ventilated spaces, and that is where your risk of getting infection is very high. We have to definitely continue sustaining our efforts to increase adult beds and oxygen and essential drugs. Remember, we are a 100 crore adult population, and in the adult population, we have hardly immunized 10%, not even 10%. 90 crore are still not vaccinated. So all those who are not vaccinated, 120 days after the second wave or 3 to 5 months after the second wave are likely to get infection. That will be huge numbers. So again, we will be running short of beds if we don't keep these in mind. Most importantly, we have to prepare for beds, oxygen, essential drugs, and separate hospitals for treating COVID infection in children. I would urge that this should be a priority because it does not exist now. We do not have enough pediatric intensive care beds, and because both normal children and infected children will come, hospitals cannot become breeding grounds for spread. Therefore, we should start designating some hospitals as exclusive hospitals. We should also, in my opinion, in a guarded way, open schools and colleges because they are super spreading events. We are open. Can we have online education? Can we do all this in an interrupted way? Have school for a week, break for 2 weeks? I don't know. We have to be innovative and discuss these options. Next slide, please. Practice this new normal. Who should practice it? I think everyone. But my appeal is to all the opinion leaders, political leaders, and administrators. Can we think of a country without elections for 1 year? Is it so important? Will heavens fall if we don't conduct panchayat polls in UP or elections in a state or elections even for a housing society or a trade union? Is that important? Can we ban religious congregations? We can pray to God from our house. I think this is very important. The so-called new normal is not being practiced by people who take decisions and who have a tremendous influence on the behavior of other human beings. We have to learn to hunt down symptomatic people because they spread it more, and we have to use probably a risk matrix in workplaces. This is something that I have advised Tata and I continue to advise Tata and Biocon. You classify people, workforce in an area as those who have contact with large number of people so they can get infection and transmit infection to others. The red, green and yellow zones. Remember, we have to avoid crowds, closed spaces and close contact settings, and 3 W's, you have to wear mask. Summarizing, SARS-CoV-2 is a new virus. As I already said, no one is immune to it unless they are infected or vaccinated. A very long vaccine, wearing a mask and maintaining distance. Make sure we continue to make beds available. Please keep children in mind. We have a responsibility to protect elders. And one great difference between the first wave and the second wave is, in the first wave, data was analyzed by experts and they gave advice which was taken by policymakers and governments. Second time, it was disregarded. Every intervention that we plan should be data driven. The road ahead is going to be bumpy with a lot of speed breakers. We have to slow down economic activity. Learn that both lives and livelihoods are important. I promised you I'll come back to this. I'll come back. This is my last slide. Mutation is an inherent property of viruses. In the end, I want to tell you human beings should mutate. And Dr. Kalyana Sundaram will help to mutate. Not biologically, but behaviorally, please mutate. Please mutate and change your behavior. Learn to wear mask. Quarantine. You don't have to quarantine yourself if you are healthy. But please, in society, quarantine religious functions, elections, and crowded settings. Social distancing. Maintain a distance between people, which is very, very important. I think enough emphasis I have laid all through this. Also, distance yourself from people who spread wise messages like there will not be a third wave. There are other people who will give you messages. A few people will die. Corona will get attention. Evidence. The new normal is whatever I told you. Please spread a positive infodemic. Please give positive messages. Don't show burial grounds and burning bodies. Can we say that wearing a mask is important because you need not get infected? Remember, our biggest weak link is behavior change communication. What I've learned working in NIMHANS about, especially working with HIV people, is threat, fear based messages don't work. Honest messages providing alternatives work. The one way of living is living without wearing a mask. Another way of living is living with wearing a mask. And that protects you from COVID. The first one does not. One way of living is avoiding crowds. Other way is go and mix with crowds. I mean, you give honest information, people will listen to you. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is more to COVID than the virus. Now, these three are very important. I must also tell you that the biggest beating in the second wave has been taken by virologists and the virus. It has been blamed for mutations and lack of sequencing. But the biggest beating should be taken by my dear friend Dr. Kalyan Sundaram, because he practices behavioral medicine, and I think he has the solutions for you, not me. At the end of this talk, I'm sure Dr. Kalyan Sundaram will agree with this statement that when he has friends like Ravi, he does not require enemies. Thank you very much.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Ravi, thank you very much for once again for a no nonsense, no holds barred, punch in the solar plexus kind of a talk. We do not listen to common sense. We are going to pay a very heavy price. We are already paying a very heavy price. Every time we pay a big price, we look around us and see whom can we blame except ourselves. I think the time has come. We have to introspect, go inwards and ask ourselves, have we done everything that is to be done from our side? Before we say, as Dr. Ravi says, virologists, viruses, and all others are working tirelessly to help you, because the heart-rending visuals the media projects with TRP in mind about people dying on the road, people not getting oxygen, people not getting beds, they're all realities. They are not fiction. However, why have we landed there? Before coming to Dr. Ravi, asking him questions, I'll give a couple of examples. Several years ago, helmet wearing was not a rule in Karnataka. The government typically did a flip-flop. About 35 years ago, if there was one two-wheeler riding with a helmet, that was me. Everybody looked at me and laughed and said, what is joker? He's like a circus clown wearing a helmet and going. Helmet is not for somebody else's to praise you or make fun of you. Helmet is to protect your head. Several of my friends said, I will not wear a helmet because by the time I reach my office, my hairdo will collapse. It won't look nice when I enter my office. For heaven's sake, if there is no head, where is your hairdo? Dr. Ravi talked about side effects. Several people have written in the newspaper, 67% of the people who had COVID injection had side effects. Big headlines. Go down and read small letters in page 3 in one corner. And what are the side effects? Pain. Every injection you take will have pain. Your Tetvac will have more pain than your COVID shield or Covaxin injections. Starting with that, let me come back to Dr. Ravi. I've given you enough time to Ravi to rest your throat and some water. There are about 187, 190 questions. I've tried to club them together. The first question is, what the organization should be doing to support their employees and families navigate through the crisis? I'm sure there's a question from BCIC. The question is, what is important here? Are we talking about livelihood or life? Where do we draw a balance? Ravi would like to venture.
Thank you, Dr. Kalyan Sundaram. I think I dwelt on during the talk. I'll just give you a quick summary. If an organization has to have periodic interactions with its members to impress on them that wearing mask is important, maintaining social distance is important. Third, it has to promote vaccination. Remember, vaccination is the way forward. The earlier the globe gets vaccinated, the lesser the corona problem will be. So I think these are the three things that I would say. Please conduct a social audit of your employees. Don't reprimand them. Reward them for good behaviors. I think that is a way forward.
Any prediction for the upcoming wave? I think Dr. Ravi has already handled it. Though the authorities concerned have done their best, many sections of the society refuse to be educated. By the nonchalant attitude, towards the seriousness of the COVID. What is there to be done? I think Ravi has very eloquently put it. Look, you have been told repeatedly again and again and again, do not crowd, wear your mask, keep your physical distance, avoid gatherings. But if you insist and say, I will not do it, but because Ravi, people often tell me, I have been going to the gym, I have built my muscles, I'm very strong now, I'm taking immunoglobulins, I'm taking this medicine, I'm taking healthy diet. I think I can protect myself from everybody, including WWE champions. Can you not handle the virus? Ravi?
I would say to such people, you should add to that list. Currently, in the last 3 months, I am vaccinated, so I am not going to.
Yeah.
That is the biggest.
Can you, correct. There are a couple of questions on that. Can you please elaborate on?
Yeah.
I have been vaccinated. Yeah.
I told you, I'll again repeat, vaccination does not guarantee protection against infection. What does it mean? Even after vaccination, people get infected, but they don't develop disease severe and they don't die. I am running a WhatsApp OPD every day between 8 to 11 for all my near and dear ones. Among the 24 people that I am talking to every day, 6 people are vaccinated. 4 of them have received 2 doses and completed 15 days, and 2 of them have completed 1 dose. So, vaccination will not prevent infection. And also remember, if you get infected, you will spread it to others. After vaccination, you have a moral responsibility to wear a mask. The same thing about gym goers, the immunity boosters, the WWF heroes. It's not enough, sir.
Yeah, people say, look, you say wear masks.
Are getting till everybody in the globe is vaccinated. You have to continue to wear masks, maintain social distance.
Okay, now people tell me I've taken my first vaccine and I was told with Covishield initially 4 weeks later, then they change the goalpost and then they say I can take it after 6 weeks. Now, by the time 6 weeks came up, we have run out of vaccine. Assuming I will get my vaccine only by the 8th week, if at all, should it be considered as a second injection, or should we think it is the first one and take a second one after 4-6 weeks again? Ravi.
It is considered as a second infection, especially with Covishield when the clinical trial was conducted. For the purpose of the second dose, the 25,000 volunteers were divided into those who received at 4 weeks, 8 weeks, and 12 weeks. All of them were equally protected against severe disease and death. However, the antibody response was better in people at 12 weeks, was lesser in people at 6 to 8 weeks, and least in people at 4 weeks. That doesn't mean a person who received second dose at 4 weeks is not protected or not developed antibodies. Dr. Kalyan Sundaram is a personal example. He will give you his example. So it is not to be considered as fresh vaccination. You can wait up to 3 months to receive your second dose if there is vaccine shortage.
Ravi, I think it's a very reassuring note to several people because they have been struggling, running from pillar to post for the second jab of the infection. In fact, FANA, the private nursing home associations have written to the government saying, please, before you go for 18 to 45, make sure those who have taken the first injection, 45 and above, 60 and above, give them the second shot and reassurance before you move on. Now, Dr. Ravi asked me to mention about me. I was one of the early ones to take being a doctor. I took a second injection at the end of 4 weeks. But last October, I got COVID positive, mild symptoms, and I was home quarantined for 2 weeks. Now, just for the kicks, end of April, I got my spike antibodies tested. I got the report. I was surprised. I rang up the chief pathologist and she said, you have very good spike antibodies. Lucky. But my go-to person is, of course, Dr. Ravi. I called Ravi and said, Ravi, before telling him the value, I asked him what should be my value. In fact, after getting my COVID infection, I got my antibody tested. It was 0. My son, 0. My wife, 0. We are all positive. My grandson, 80-year-old, he was the only one who had developed antibodies after infection. Only one. Now, after this, Ravi said anything over double digits considered good. My antibody titer is 250. It just means I'm protected very largely. Does it mean I can loll around without a mask, party around? No, the answer is no. Ravi is very clear about it. Don't panic if it is delayed by 8 or 12 weeks. Related to this question, Ravi, is Covaxin, they say end of 4 weeks. I'm getting panicky. My 3.5 is over. I'm for 4 weeks on Monday. Vaccine is not available. My God, what will happen to me? Please, Ravi.
The window for Covaxin is 6 to 8 weeks. The reason why do people set this 4 weeks?
Hello, audio.
That doesn't mean if you delay it a couple of weeks, you will not get protection. No. In fact, it's probably better because memories get boosted of 6 to 8 weeks. So please do not be too concerned that you did not get exactly on that day. And my advice to you also is, at the height of COVID spread, going to a center, especially if you're a vulnerable population, itself is risky of getting COVID. So please wait. In 15 days, the shortage will be solved. I know that because all companies have ramped up production. By May 15th, vaccines will be available, and preference is going to be for those who have to get second dose, less preference for those who have to get first dose.
Fantastic news, Ravi. You have reassured in one shot several who are anxiously hanging there. I am going for a walk every morning. There's hardly anybody on the road. Should I wear a mask or can I go gallivanting?
I would say wear a mask, but I would permit you the luxury of pulling it down, taking some fresh oxygen if nobody is on the road, and putting it back again.
Thank you, Ravi. I can see some smiles which are not visible to you, neither to me. Sir, especially I want to reassure us, aged people 80 plus, children below 18, and we are very worried for either extremes of the family members. We are trying our best to be careful, but God knows where is the virus coming from. And once it happens, I can tell you personal experience of some very close family friends. The blame game begins. Did you bring it? Did she bring it? Who brought it? And there is a fracture in communication, at times leading to fracture in relationships, which is, you will say, it is your domain. But Ravi, tell me, entry of virus, where is it coming from?
The virus will find susceptible hosts. That is the business of the virus. It's survival for the virus that it has to find the host. If you talk to people, engage in a discussion, somewhere they would have let their guard down. At some place, that person, I know him very well. He's been coming to my house for so many days. Everybody whom you come into contact is potentially infected with COVID. Remember that. Well,
so let's audio. Ravi, your audio again.
Very, very important. Third, very important. People are asking me now whether indoors we should wear mask. I will say it depends on the context. I have a son who's an emergency medicine physician. He does COVID duty in and day out. He's continuously exposed to people. If I have to talk to him, I am wondering whether I am one person who goes out to Vidhan Sabha, various meetings. I should be wearing a mask in my house. My wife need not wear a mask. She never goes out. So it's contextual. But remember, apart from this, one of the biggest things there is some evidence emerging that clothes are to scare people, but please open your windows and let fresh air every morning, like your grandfather and grandmother used to do. In apartment complexes, there are papers which say that viruses spread through chutes. Virus is found in human feces. So infected people, when they use toilet and they flush it without closing the lid of the commode, they generate aerosols. These aerosols have been shown to cause infections. The gut has highest density of receptors for COVID. Please, when you use a toilet, close the lid and flush it.
I just want to add to your very common sense response, closing the lid and flush it. Some years ago,
Of hours in closed rooms. So ventilation is important and having fresh air is important. Over Sundar.
okay. Now, I think it's a very important point you mentioned about closing the lid and then flushing it. Some years ago, they did a study in Japan. They did not close the lid and flushed it. They found particles in your toothbrush, which is next to the wash basin. Need I say more?
Yes.
If some of you want to vomit, please go to the bathroom next door, vomit and wash your mouth and come back, because what I said can be very repulsive, but it's a fact. What we do not see, that does not mean they don't exist. Ravi has been saying it again and again. Virus is not wanting to come to you, but if you go and invite in any of your ill-mannered behavior, it will come gladly and come and dance around you at every organ in your body and then make you feel sick from head to toe. One of the other symptoms that people have described in the news recently is brain fogging, irritability,
Exactly.
sudden irritability, brain fogging, diarrhea, is a gut induced. So be very careful. If you want to avoid being sick, avoid crowds, avoid the virus. Ravi, what about herd immunity? And now, how does herd immunity come? Will vaccination facilitate herd immunity?
Dr. Kalyan Sundaram, I must say that it came with a bang and it's going out with a whimper. The phrase herd immunity. Yeah, we all were looking forward to its mutation. When viruses mutate, they can cause reinfection. What is the extent of reinfection? Nobody actually knows, but there are studies that say that 20% of the people who got COVID once are getting reinfected with mutants. It is a business of virus to mutate. It will mutate because it has to survive. And vaccination and several factors will also put pressure on the virus to mutate. So I am not so sure that herd immunity is going to come into operation. Having said that, that's a speculation. Whenever 70 to 80% of population is either immunized or has got asymptomatic infection, herd immunity operates. The principle is the virus can't find a new host. So it lingers around as an endemic disease. It does not cross outbreaks. Over.
Now, the other phenomena that we are watching is people in the relatively lower socioeconomic status, when they say home quarantine, 3 or 4 adults, 2 children, they have 1 room and 1 kitchen. When we say home quarantine, the kind of a quarantine that we envisage when we talk about home quarantine, typically it is 1 room, 1 bathroom, no stepping out for 2 weeks, food is being given to you, taken out, vessels are kept separate. But in this kind of a situation, it is well nigh impossible. The result, I am noticing 1 person gets infected. In a matter of time, everybody in that house gets infected because it is inevitable. Ravi?
Yes, absolutely right. You hit the nail. Second wave, many families are coming down. Remember, in the first wave also it happened in the slums. This time around, Dharavi slum and many slums in Bangalore, the infection is very less because, as Dr. Kalyan Sundar said, Indian homes, average Indian homes, that means I'm talking of 50-60% of population in India, does not have homes suited for isolation. So it is very important that masking we should start practicing even within the house. And this is where the concept of herd immunity is coming. But if there are elders and those with comorbidities, then they are going to come down with severe disease even in a home. So I think
Ravi, are you there? Okay, I'll come back to another question now. How long will it take to develop vaccine for the possible 3rd wave? Now the question here is assuming when you hit a 3rd wave, let's say October, you will have to start vaccination all over again. To my non-virology mind, I don't think so, but I want the expert to answer.
exactly, you're right, absolutely right. You don't need a vaccine to prevent third wave. The vaccine that you need is social vaccine, and that vaccine will be given to Sundaram, not by me. I will make a vaccine that is injected into your arm. He makes a vaccine that is injected into your ear, acts on your brain, and heals your beat. We do not need vaccine. And also this concern about variants, hard data available says all vaccines protect against serious disease and death, whether it is variant or no variant. So that is good news as of now.
If you get COVID, I also got typhoid. So is COVID bringing typhoid with it, or did typhoid bring COVID with it? Can we have a coexisting infections happening simultaneously?
Yes, you can have a coexisting infection happening because the burden of disease of other communicable disease in India is very high. If you have COVID and if you have typhoid, I suspect your hygiene practices are not.
Absolutely right. There are a couple of questions which relate to the mental health. Let me see what is the question and see. Ravi, your wish is being answered. Will the vaccine have any long-term side effects or mental health of patients who are on medication? Now, there are about half a dozen questions on mental health. Each of them have its own reasons for answering in a different way. In fact, I was talking to Ravi this morning. It will be very useful to have an entire program on COVID and mental health. In fact, we at Richmond Fellowship, we are actually planning to have a program, COVID and mental health. The answer is, I'll give you a one-liner, but one-liner is not enough. But there's a huge topic, how COVID is impacting those who are already mental health compromised. Those who are in the borderline, they are breaking through. Those who thought they were relatively healthy, they really don't know now whether they are healthier in the mental health sense. Anxiety is very prevalent. Existing symptoms get worse. Medication needs to be increased. but monitoring with your mental health expert is extremely important. How long would it take for us to vaccinate enough people so business can start coming back to normal? Vaccination and business. Ravi?
Um, Vaccination is very, very safe. I don't think people should worry that if you take vaccine, you will have to be away from work. Hardly 24 hours is when people have any side effect. Most of them have pain, and probably some people have fever and they feel a little tired. So I don't think vaccination per se is going to uh, uh, put off the course. In fact, the benefits of vaccination are far, far higher than anything else. Over.
Can we avoid getting coronavirus being mentally strong? And if you have a very strong willpower, my willpower is so strong, I can look at people and they will just run away by looking at me. I'm so strong. My willpower is fantastic. In fact, I don't believe in allopathy. I don't believe in many pathies. Allopathy, no. But my Ayurveda doctor or my homeopathy doctor has suggested, don't you worry, nothing to bother. You eat this kashaya, you have this churana, you have this healthy diet, and all of it will go away. Why? Anyway, it is not protecting everybody. Why do you want to poke yourself? Ravi.
I only have to say the following things for alternative systems of medicine. They have their place, and as far as I understand, most people understand, the place for alternative systems of medicine is not in acute infections and in outbreaks. It is for more chronic infections and chronic maladies that they have wonderful, effects. There is no rigorous scientific randomized clinical trials conducted for all the claims in Ayurveda or homeopathy. And modern medicine has told us that if you are administering anything to a human being, in whatever or used car salesmanship, that is, and it is not based on science. That's all I will say, Dr. Karan.
Okay. Now,
Dr.
this
Ravi,
is my big.
Dr. Kalyan Sundram, if I may just interrupt. Dr. Ravi, may I suggest you can switch off your video? I think you're using a mobile phone, so that is causing a bandwidth constraint, which is stopping your audio. And I think it is more crucial for people to hear your voice rather than necessarily see the face.
Serious, good, handsome face. Yes. Okay.
Done.
Ravi, this is another question. That is why we need technical expert like Devesh Agarwal to advise us. Thank you, Devesh. Now, this is my favorite question. I'm battling with this. I would like to take a question from the chat. Thank you, Gorika. Same question of mine. Can we allow maids in the house? For the last 1 month, we have not even moved out of the house. Ravi, if there is one person I would like to invite to my house, he is my maid, because all of us are tired of working and taking on the load of household activities. Ravi.
Virus always comes from outside. I follow Colin Powell's rules. I told you the other day. I don't choose for others. I don't allow others to choose for me. And Sundar, be careful about what you choose. You may get it. And in this case, it may be Corona. Thank you.
Even if they are COVID positive and treated and come back?
Yes.
Thank you, Gorika.
Reinfection. As long as you can do your work for the next 1 year, please don't. Of course, if you think you have to support their livelihood, there are many other ways you can do it. Get them vaccinated and bring them.
Yeah.
But even then, they will have infection, but ask them to wear a mask. Give them salary without working. I don't know. I am not prescriptive. I can only tell you, like a behavioral medicine scientist, I can give you things a la carte you choose what you want. Over.
Ravi, just a provocative question from me. You are doing exactly what you have recommended. You know what I follow. Now, what is the significance of asymptomatic carriers? There are asymptomatic carriers. Now, who is considered a carrier? Somebody in the family is positive, others have no symptoms. How do you classify a carrier? They don't have symptoms. What kind of a role do they play in transmitting to others? At what stage of day 5, day 7, 10, 12, 14? Where do we stand in this?
Okay, I tell you the word carrier in quotes. Carrier is usually a term that is used for people who keep shedding virus for a very long time. Corona is an acute disease. Okay, so the carrier term is not applicable. Having said that, let me tell you, 80 to I showed you data very clearly. 80% of people are mildly symptomatic or asymptomatic. But then there are papers that tell you if you meticulously sit with people who are positive and ask them questions, the true asymptomatic will be only 40%, who did not have absolutely anything. All the others have had something which they felt is not worthwhile reporting, and according to them, it's normal. It's normal to sneeze 10 times a day. It must be some allergy. It's normal to have a little temperature because I had Coca-Cola with ice yesterday and a sore throat. So this asymptomatic, to a large extent, be careful. I'm making it provocative, is a myth. If you are asymptomatic and you are not monitoring yourself at home, you are COVID positive, between the 5th and the 7th day, you're not monitoring yourself, you will worsen, a proportion of people will worsen, and then you will be gasping and you will not get a bed and an oxygen, and it will be too late. So please remember, the word asymptomatic actually should ring alarm bells for two reasons. A, in terms of transmission. B, in terms of worsening. And when that worsening happens, it is very rapid. It does not give time for you to act. So I will give these 2 points, Sundar, and stop.
All right. There are several people who ask you, I'm sure ask me, I'm surely they ask you, message me, call me. I'm having hypertension. I have diabetes. I'm taking treatment for renal problem. I've treatment for cancer treatment. Should I take a vaccine? Is it safe? Same way they ask me, I'm taking treatment for mental health issues. I'm on treatment for depression and anxiety. Should I take vaccine? My answer to all of them is take vaccine no matter under what category of comorbidity you are taking other medication. Should we stop the medication for 2 days before and 2 days after taking vaccination? Answer is no. Take your medication, take the vaccination, get moving. Ravi, what is your take?
Absolutely right, Sundar. People with comorbidities require the vaccine more. Having said that, if there is a history of allergy to many substances, be it food or otherwise, please mention it to your vaccination team. Many of my doctor friends have asked me, they have had allergies. I've given them one piece of advice. Like any drug, let them small test dose intradermal injection. Wait for 2-3 hours. If they do not have any reaction, please proceed with vaccine. I reiterate, vaccines are safe. Over.
Okay. If RT-PCR test is negative, then why do lungs seem to get infected as we find through our scanning?
I told you the natural history of the disease. I will like to invite you to that. If somebody has got infection, has been asymptomatic, worsened on the 7th or 8th day, and lands up in hospital with symptoms of COVID, CT scan will show lungs are flooded. At that time, nasal swab and throat swab will not be positive. because the virus has already moved on to the lung. Lung fluid, if you collect, it will be positive. The best window for RT-PCR is 5 to 7 days after virus enters the human body. So before that, it is not 95% sensitive. After that, it is not 95% sensitive. Number two, specimens have to be collected properly, transported properly, and tested by competent people using the right kits. A negative PCR result has many, many reasons. Don't blame the test, don't blame the virologist. And don't conclude
Okay.
that
So,
CT scan is better than RT-PCR. Just because it's costly does not make it a better investigation.
now, I think the message is very clear. The test will be done between 5 and 7 days of being infected. But remember, having the first symptom is not the same day you have got infected. You may have been infected a couple of days before you start
Exactly.
showing symptoms. Am I correct, Ravi? Am I correct in saying that? Ravi, are you there?
Yes, yes, I'm losing connection in between.
Yeah.
Yes. What is the
Yeah,
question?
okay. I said somebody gets symptom on say 3rd of the month, but I'm saying the day he's developed symptom is not the date the person has got connection with the virus. It could have happened 2-3 days prior to that, before the first symptom is manifested. So the calculation need not be from day one of the symptoms, 1 or 2 days before the virus has entered the body. Am I right or wrong?
Absolutely right. Day when somebody gets infected and develops symptoms, that the virus has entered the body minimum 2 to 3 days earlier, but it can be
Correct.
as late as 14 days. Okay, you are right. There is a period which we call incubation period in medical language, where people actually take time to develop symptoms, and that varies from person to person. It also varies with the amount of virus dose that is given to a person. So I think what Dr. Kalyan Sundaram said is very important. But remember, the worsening happens definitely between 5th and 7th day after onset of symptoms in those who are symptomatic. Those who are not symptomatic, if there are known contacts of a COVID patient, please be watchful, monitor yourself at home. Pulse oximeter is most important. Over.
Okay. Possibility of impact of the third wave. How long will COVID-19 last? 1 year? 2 years? 3 years? Any guesses? Ravi, any predictions?
It depends on how quickly we get majority of adults and children vaccinated. If looking at it from now, if I have to make a guess, I think maybe a year and a half. And the virus will still be there. It will be circulating, but at a low level, like influenza is now. It will become endemic. When will COVID end? I don't think it will end. Maybe when my great grandchildren graduate, I won't be there. That time it may end.
And there may be virus Ravi generation 3. Now, we have read about viral cloud that is airborne and stays around longer. What do you think about that?
I mentioned it to you. This is in medical terms called an aerosol. Aerosols are micro droplets. Droplets can be of different sizes. 5 microns are and bigger or larger droplets. They don't float around in the air. Because of gravity, they will fall down to earth within 1 meter or 2 meters. That is the logic behind social distancing. But smaller droplets will float around in the air, travel longer distances, especially in closed spaces. Walking in the park. This, the person was asking, referring to an aerosol.
Correct. Walking in the park is still safer if you wear a thing, because somebody who has walked past ahead of you or crossed you on the other side, if he has produced an aerosol strong enough, it can actually be, you will be vulnerable. What are the condition between, no, let me, how long does the virus stay on dead bodies? And cover they use on the dead bodies. On the dead bodies, and when they are covered and they are taken for crematorium, great difficulty in getting a crematorium today to burn the bodies. How long does it stay on them? Any idea? Any
Okay.
answer? Hello. Ravi, are you there?
Yes, there is more virus
Ravi, we lost
life.
you. Ravi, how long? Sorry, again, repeat.
Can you hear me now?
No. Oh, now yes. Tell me, please repeat again.
We learnt a
It's
lot
gone again.
from the HIV epidemic, and the same thing is also being reproduced for COVID. As long as there is moisture, it will have virus. So, preserved in mortuaries in cold rooms, it can be 2 weeks or more. Of the nose and mouth, as you know, the practice is to put cotton plugs to prevent secretions from coming out. So all secretions on the surface will be infected. That is why bodies are covered in plastic bags or in PPE kind of stuff and then sent for cremation. The short answer is yes, bodies of a dead person with COVID is infectious. That is why very minimal rites. And if it is buried, it has to be covered with bleaching powder. Cremation definitely destroys the virus. Over.
Somebody asked about people in the slums, despite whatever we are telling them, don't need to listen to what we are saying. They are repeatedly infecting themselves and others. The answer is, Ravi has repeatedly said, masking, education, education, and education. Show them examples of those who have not followed this simple methods and what happened to them and their families. If you do not want this to happen to you and to your neighbors, please follow the standard methods. Otherwise, everybody is asking for trouble. Can we travel in the lift? Last 2 questions. We are nearing 1 o'clock. Can we travel in the lift?
Lift is a closed space. If it is sanitized in high density areas, it is safe to travel in lift. And remember, in high-rise buildings, you can take a long time to go up. So it depends on whether cases are there. In office complexes, I will say, try to climb stairs, keep yourself fit, avoid the lift.
Double masking, what's your take? Double masking. Ravi?
Can you hear me, Sundar?
Yeah, now yes. Now yes.
Yeah, I'm telling, lift is a closed space. So it needs to be sanitized every day, especially in places where there are COVID positive people, even otherwise. If it is short distances, learn to walk and keep yourself fit. If you cannot, you can use the lift, but please use a mask so that the aerosols inside do not infect you.
Message when you travel in the lift, for heaven's sake, mask. Double masking, some people feel comfortable wearing double masking, maybe to protect better. Vaccination is crucial. I'm just reading a statement. Only it's very, very important vaccination. I think Ravi has re-emphasized again and again. Only 0.3% to 0.044% of the people who have contracted COVID-19 after vaccination. Even then, it's a very mild symptom. Ravi, is it true? Correct?
Absolutely, very mild symptoms, severity of disease, and death is not being noted in people who are vaccinated with 2 doses and completed 15 days after second dose.
As my uncle and Dr. Ravi's teacher and colleague, Dr. Mani, neurologist, used to say, do not do the Tarzan act by thumping yourself on the chest by saying, I have been vaccinated twice. Now I can saunter around everywhere and twirl your mustache up and down and say, nothing will happen. Hug me and I'm okay. Please, for heaven's sake, if you do not follow COVID appropriate behavior, you will not only get it, you will spread it. You have a social responsibility to the people around you. I think we have sort of all the time finished. Last question, I think we have talked about it, Ravi. Final word from you. Given the shortage of vaccines, will it be better for the government to start 30-45-year-old age group and gradually reduce to 25-35? I think Ravi has answered. His answer was the government is contemplating. Those who have taken the first shot, they must get the second shot. If by chance you have missed 45 and above, you should have a priority of getting first and second shot. Not because 18 to 45 are not important, but if you have taken the first one, you have the right to expect a second shot to be given by the government. I think with that, we are exactly 2 minutes after 1 o'clock. I would like to thank, on behalf of Professor Ravi, I'm sure he'll have a couple of words to say, to thank this organization, BCIC, for allowing us this opportunity to interact with you, learn from your questions, and we hope we have become wiser when we go back to our own premises, our offices, our organizations, our dear families, and for our near and dear loved ones. Better informed, therefore better protection. Information is not protection. Information assimilation, following it to the T, is the protection. What you learn in the classroom does not give you knowledge. What you apply, what you learn, is not give you knowledge and wisdom. With that, I hand over to Ravi.
Thank you, Dr. Kalyan Sundaram. Thank you, BCIC, for arranging this session. As Dr. Kalyan Sundaram said, with every session, I learn. I'm sure he also learns from the questions audience ask. It makes us better human beings. I would urge you, all of you, to mutate in your behavior, to quarantine activities where crowds are there, maintain social distance from negative messages. Please help others to wear masks and follow COVID appropriate behavior. That if you do, by practicing it on or converting 2 people every day from today, I'm sure that message will perpetuate and we can avoid or blunt the third wave. Thank you very much.
Thank you. May I now request Mr. Devesh Agrawal, our past president, immediate past president, to kindly sum it up, sir, for the today's evening session.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ravi and Dr. Kalyan Sundaram. I had the pleasure of listening to Dr. Ravi just a little over a week ago, and I immediately said that his pragmatism, along with that of Dr. Kalyan Sundaram, has to be spread amongst the industry body. We have a lot of members, and we pretty much many times have the same questions that were asked and answered. People talked about vaccination. I still remember Dr. Ravi's statement that no vaccine is going to protect you completely from a disease, and it applies to any vaccine, not just the COVID vaccine, but it will reduce the intensity of the infection. It is up to you to take a vaccine or not take a vaccine. If you don't take a vaccine, you're only playing lottery with your life. We used to call it Russian roulette. I think we can now call it the COVID roulette. But thank you so much to these doctors. Thank you so much to BCIC for taking the effort. We thank also Dr. Subramaniam and the RV institution for hosting this platform. Very kind. You can, if you have some follow-up questions, please address it to the office at bcic.in. They will try to forward them to the doctors and try and get you answers to some of the questions that may not have been answered. This program has been recorded and the chamber will try to make it available on our YouTube platform. Please feel free to spread the message to others. I think we have to use the WhatsApp University to spread the truth and destroy myths. Thank you once again, doctors. Thank you all the participants, and thank you to the office administration.
Thank you, Mr. Devesh Agrawal. Before we conclude, we would like to have a virtual moment to handing over to both the doctors, and we'll ensure that it's delivered at their office or at their residence.